Good evening, everybody, and welcome if you're watching it either in my Facebook group, on my YouTube channel, or indeed if you're watching it as my podcast recording. So welcome to this week's topic. And as I'm recording this 2 days after the clocks have changed in October, we're right at the very end of October 2023 as I record this, I thought it was a really good time to revisit the information with regards to the impact on our health that this sort of keep changing of the clocks can have, particularly at this time of year when we've moved the clocks back and we're moving into more of winter time and lacking sunlight. So just a quick recap, why on earth do we do this, changing the clocks twice a year? It seems to stem from the Second World War when we really got into doing this. We were trying to extend the sort of daylight, best available daylight to fit with working hours. I think at one time it was to help farmers, my understanding. I think Germany, they started it before we did. But as far as I'm aware, about a quarter of the world's population still insist on changing their clocks forward and back. But we now know there's quite a bit of research around the impact on our health by doing this. And I know that the government were thinking of reviewing whether we should continue this practice, but this was just before COVID struck. And I should think this has just been pushed out into the long grass, as they say, probably not even on their agenda at all. Far too much to be thinking about. So what can happen when we move our clocks, either moving them forward, spring forward, as I like to say, in the spring months, or fall back, in the American fall, autumn, as we fall back, move the clocks back 1 hour in the autumn, in the winter months. Now, the impact is on our natural circadian rhythms. Now, the natural circadian rhythms are truly something internally. It's like an internal body clock that we have that helps to regulate our sleep and wake cycle. It's hugely important. If we start to move away from our natural circadian rhythms, then it starts to have implications on either our ability to sleep or other impacts on our health. The internal body clock is very, very sensitive to changes. That's why we suffer with jet lag, and some people will suffer more than others when we're flying through different time zones, going on holiday or returning back to the UK. It can really impact our ability to readjust and fit back into the normal patterns. We can see it with animals as well that struggle at this time of year, knowing what on earth is going on because the daylight's changing. We're trying to put them into a rhythm and routine with feeding, which doesn't fit with what they're used to because we just suddenly unnaturally moved the clocks backwards and forwards. So we know it can severely impact our ability to fall asleep. It can impact the ability to have quality sleep and our wakefulness at different times of day. It can also affect our metabolic balance. What we mean by this is it's our ability to control our blood sugar regulation. It can impact our appetite regulation. And we know we have hormones that are released in the gut known as leptin and ghrelin. These regulate our appetite and our ability to want to eat. And if we lack sleep, and it's been found by moving the clocks, it can impact our leptin and ghrelin regulation and make us want to eat more. Ghrelin makes us feel hungry. Leptin tells us that we are satisfied, satiated, we don't need more to eat. So by impacting these hormones, we can start to eat more, and this will therefore have an impact on our metabolic health, our blood sugar regulation, and on weight gain and obesity. There's links between obesity and the changing of the clocks as well. We've also discovered clock genes, and these clock genes are located mostly in the intestinal tract. And by changing our natural circadian rhythm, by moving the clocks and shifting it, it can create flare-ups for those who suffer with IBS type conditions, or indeed with more severe inflammatory bowel disease conditions. There can be more of a risk of flare-ups because it can affect our digestive capability and our bowel movements, and indeed this very precious gut microbiome as well. Now, some studies have found in Sweden that in the spring, when we move the clocks forward, it can have an impact on heart disease risk. Other studies with the Health and Safety Executive in the UK has noticed there's an increased risk of accidents, accidents at work, accidents driving to work in the spring. And of course, at this time of year, when the clocks go back, falling back by 1 hour, and we lose an hour of sunlight in the afternoon, this is what is starting to have a real severe impact on our mood, our serotonin production, and our ability to sleep well. We get an increase in the winter of seasonal affective disorder that's going to be amplified by losing the hour's sleep with the clocks changing. The decreased sunlight can affect the ability to produce serotonin in the brain. Of course, we know serotonin is our happy chemical, makes us feel happy, makes us feel calm, makes us feel in control. So it can reduce the amount of serotonin that's being produced. That's also going to have an impact on our mood. It can affect levels of the hormone melatonin that affects our sleep and wake cycle. And let's not forget at this time of year, by reducing the amount of sun exposure we may get later in the day, or at least daylight exposure, it starts to have an even bigger impact on our vitamin D. Now, we know through the winter months we're not getting vitamin D when the sun is very low in the sky. We don't get UVB rays which penetrate the skin to help produce vitamin D through the skin. But it's going to amplify that risk and that problem. And we must supplement vitamin D3 as an average. I recommend 1,000 IU right through the winter months, right through from October through to April. In fact, if anything, we probably need it all year round. So what can we do to try and stave off the worst impacts of shifting our clocks, particularly at this time of year? It really is essential to maintain quite strict sleep-wake cycles. Go to bed at the same time. So the clocks might have changed, but it's really important 7 days a week to stick to the same sleep and wake cycle. It's not good or healthy for you to think it's the weekend and I'm going to have a mega long lie-in. As much as you can, it is much better to go to bed, say at 10 o'clock, and get up at 6 or 7, go to bed at 11, get up at 7. You may want slightly 1 hour extra at the weekend, but you don't want to be doing mammoth lie-ins and taking lengthy sleeps, because this really does affect our natural circadian rhythms. It really confuses the brain and affects a lot of our hormonal output and neurotransmitter output as well. So if you find getting to sleep a problem, you need to start thinking about a sleep hygiene routine in the evenings. One of the first things I recommend is getting off gadgets in the evening. And thank you for watching this if you're watching this on your phone live at 6 p.m. But do bear in mind, through the evening, it's not good to be on our gadgets because of the blue light. This blue light affects our ability to get to sleep, because the blue light penetrates through, affects the pineal gland, and starts to upset whether it thinks we're in daylight mode and not getting us ready to go to sleep. We need to think about reducing caffeine intake. If you know caffeine, if you know you're sensitive to caffeine later on in the day, you probably know you shouldn't drink it after midday, certainly no later than 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Stop the caffeine from any sources, any sort of drinks, not just your teas and coffees. If you know it's got caffeine in, and those sports drinks, it's not a good idea. If you're a gym bunny after work, do be aware that by doing strenuous exercise later in the day, which is likely to be creating a production of adrenaline, which is our stress response, then it could impact your ability to switch off and unwind. You need an evening routine that is very relaxing. So this is the time to be doing yoga, and morning is more the time to be doing the really stressful, strenuous activity. Not say stressful, I don't want it to be stressful, but certainly the strenuous activity. Do that at the start of the day, and the evening should be the more relaxing time. You want relaxing activities in the evening to really set you up for a good night's sleep. Now, we now know more than we did a few years ago, the impact, as I mentioned, about the pineal gland and how that helps to regulate our sleep-wake cycle and our circadian rhythms. It is really important, if you struggle to have a proper sleep-wake cycle, if you struggle to get to sleep at night, if you struggle to stay asleep at night, then the best thing that you can do from the latest available research is to get outside first thing in the morning and get daylight into your eyes. Good idea to go for a little walk if you've got the time, at least be outside, at least for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even better. Needs to be within the first hour of waking. I do appreciate as we move more into the winter, it's going to get lighter later, not till 8 a.m. So you really need to try and find a way to get outside and get daylight through the eyes, which then reaches the pineal gland that really helps to set this sleep-wake cycle. It now then realizes it is now daylight, it's time to get going, it's the beginning of the day, and in turn that helps to regulate, our cortisol production that's very much part of our circadian rhythm by stimulating the production of cortisol at the start of the day that sets us up for the day ahead. It really helps then to make sure the cortisol is at its lowest by the time we go to bed. Choose foods as well, really important to help to keep your blood sugar levels stable. I've talked about this many times on other posts that I've done and in blogs. But you need to be thinking about your protein intake with every meal and every snack. And when we're thinking about the production of serotonin, we need to think about our tryptophan-rich foods, which are the building blocks and convert into serotonin. So here we're thinking about nuts, chicken, turkey, and eggs, really important, brilliant protein sources, and they break down to produce an amino acid called tryptophan, which in turn helps to create this neurotransmitter called serotonin. Watch your refined carbohydrates. They really upset your blood sugar regulation, affecting your ability to sleep, affecting your ability to stay asleep, and affecting your energy levels through the day, and really keeping your vegetable intake as high as possible. I have written a blog before that can be found on my website that's called I did write it for Women in Home magazine, and I'll put it onto my website. We asked a naturopath why we feel tired all the time. We asked a naturopath why we feel tired all the time. So I talk about that, and I also talk about remedies, things that you can do to really boost your energy levels. If you feel you're beginning to flag, now it's getting so dark and we're heading to winter. And just finally, if you are one of those people who really struggle in the winter months with this seasonal affective disorder that really starts to affect your mood in a very serious way, think about a light box. Think about doing phytotherapy. Use a light box because they have been found to be so helpful to stave off winter depression. Hope you found that really helpful tonight. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and I look forward to catching up with you next Tuesday. Thanks so much.